All right, Shalom. All praise, honor, and glory be to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah, Wahab Rakak Kwadash, which is the correct names of the Heavenly Father, His beloved Son, and the Holy Spirit. Yahweh being the true name of the one you people out there know as God, and His beloved Son, whom the world refer to as Jesus Christ, would be Yahweh Shah. Those are the correct names of the true powers of all heavens and earth. All right? Also want to give double honors to the head apostles and elders of Great Millstone and Shalom. Much due honors and respect to the sincere brethren out there that's laboring in this work. So this is going to be another edition of prophecy found within parables, which the Spirit have it while going to this topic from time to time because the Heavenly Father through His Son speak clearly concerning the things to come, but is in the form of a parable. All right? It tells you that in the book of Amos, the 3rd chapter, in the 7th verse, that the Lord power would do nothing but reveal His secret unto His servants, the prophets. And it's revealed in the form of a parable. The Lord clearly speaks, but unless the Spirit has rested upon you, you're not going to perceive what the Lord is saying. All right? For an example, the Lord clearly speaks about the missiles, all right, the ICBM missiles, and the fact that this is going to be the instrument the Heavenly Father used to take down America, Babylon the Great. But it's presented in the form of a parable or allegory, all right? And this is the method of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah. And that what makes it a secret, you know? It's not revealed to many. Now, in this lesson right here, I want to go into the trees in the garden, all right? And, you know, this is found in the book of Genesis, which the book of Genesis is a very heavy book, all right? And a lot of people, they would perceive Genesis to being, you know, a basic book. And you can understand why, because being here in this society, you know, in the so-called white man schooling, well, whether it's a math book or a science book, you know, literature, social studies, usually the easiest or the basic chapters is the first chapter. So subconsciously, people, they would apply that to the Bible. You know, they'll say, well, okay, Genesis is the first chapter. So this is obviously the easiest or the most basic book in the scriptures, when in reality, the book of Genesis along with the book of Revelation is two of the most complex books in the Bible, if you will, because, you know, there's a lot of hidden and dark, you know, sayings in these books, all right? So with that, let's go right into it. This is the book of Genesis, the 3rd chapter. And starting at the 7th verse, it says, "And the eyes of them both were open, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. And they heard the voice of the Lord power walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord power amongst the trees of the garden." All right? Now, you would read this in at face value. You know, the first image that come to mind is Adam and Eve running from the Most High and hiding behind trees and taking leaves and sewing aprons on themselves. But this has a deeper meaning behind it. This is actually a foreshadowing of the state of the nation of Israel to this very day. Now, the trees is symbolic to the other nations, you see? And as we move on in this lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah, you know, this will be proven. But what I first want to focus on is the 7th verse. "And the eyes of them both were open, and they knew that they were naked." and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. So pretty much what this is going into is our people, they cover themselves, you know, with the philosophies of the other nations. All right? They associate themselves with being everything but Israelites. You know, those aprons pretty much is symbolic to a uniform. You know, if you work for McDonald's, you know, I wouldn't know it until I see you in your uniform. See? Once you put on that uniform, now I'm going to associate you with being a part of McDonald's, that franchise. You see? So that's what those aprons represent. All right? Matter of fact, let me get a quick precept to support that. The book of Isaiah, the 30th chapter, in the first verse. Woe to the rebellious children, saith the Lord, that take counsel, but not of me, and that cover with a covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin. Yeah, so that's what our people do. They cover with a covering, but not the covering of the spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahweh. Right? Amongst our people, they cover themselves with the uniform of being a Moor, all right? Or in the black consciousness community. They cover themselves with that Kemetic BS, all right? Or Christianity. They say they Baptist, you know, a Seventh-day Adventist or Jehovah Witness, all right? That's taking a covering of things that's not of the spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahweh. All right? You should be covering yourself with the fact that you're an Israelite. You see? So when you go back to Genesis, the 3rd chapter and the 7th verse, it should make a little more sense. And the eyes of them both were open, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. See? So that's covering with themselves with fig leaves. Now, with that, the fig leaves come from what? The trees. Okay? And the trees is the other nations. So whatever philosophy these other nations spring forth, our people cover themselves with that. They associate themselves with that. They wear that uniform. See what I'm saying? So now let's read verse 8. And they heard the voice of the Lord power walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And this is symbolic to now. This is symbolic to this word going out. All right? And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord. And that's what our people do. This word is going out like wind, you know, in the cool of the day. But our people is hiding themselves from their nationality. It says, and Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord power amongst the trees of the garden. Now, again, the trees is symbolic to the other nations. Okay? And that's what our people are doing. They hide themselves amongst the other nations, and primarily Esau. Okay? Now, let me get a quick precept just to show you how trees in the nations can be associated with one another. All right? This is Psalms 37 and 35. I have seen the wicked in great power. This is dealing with Esau. And spreading himself like a green bay tree. All right? Meaning Esau and his power, his tree has pretty much shadowed the whole world. That shadow of death. You know, if you have a towering tree, well, the shade of that tree is going to cover more ground. The higher the tree, the more ground that shade covers. So Esau is spreading himself like a green bay tree, meaning his philosophies, you know, his ways, and his wickedness has pretty much spread throughout the world, you know? And the people of the world is pretty much under that shade. You see what I'm saying? For an example, you can have a tree in your yard. Let's say you got a plum tree in your yard, but that tree could be so big that the branches extend over to the next door neighbor's yard. And that next door neighbor, he doesn't have to be in your yard. He could be in his own yard and pick your plums from your tree. because your tree has extended over into his yard. And that's what the so-called white man has done, you know? And the fruit is symbolic to his philosophy. So this tree has spread it, and people over the world is eating from that tree. Now, with that, this is Ezekiel, the 31st chapter, and starting at the 2nd verse. Son of man, speak unto Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and to his multitude, whom art thou like in thy greatness? Yeah, and we know that, from a chronological standpoint, this is not talking about the Pharaoh in ancient Egypt, because this is after the Pharaoh was taken down. So who is this Pharaoh the Lord commanded the Son of Man to speak to? This is dealing with Esau, okay? Egypt is modern day America, and Pharaoh would be these bankers, okay? The chief house of the nation of Edom. Verse 3, it says, behold, the Assyrian, and this is also dealing with America, all right? Assyrian is another buzzword for America, was a cedar in Lebanon, see, with fair branches and with a shadowing shroud. Yeah, and we just read in Psalms the 37th chapter where the wicked has spread himself like a green bay tree. And when you have a big tree, again, it's shade. It has it's shade covers, a lot of ground. Okay, it says, and of high stature, and his top was among the thick boughs. The waters made him great. Yeah, so and that's America. Okay, because any tree that have water is going to grow, and this is symbolic to America because America is an import country. It do a lot of business from the water. Your cars that you get over here, it don't come by way of airplanes, man. It come by way of ships. The majority of everything that comes here to this nation, it come by ships. You have these different ports around America, okay? It says, the waters made him great. The deep set him on high with her rivers running round about her plants, and sent out her little rivers unto all the trees of the field. Yeah, and again, the trees of the field is the other nations. And these little rivers is the philosophies that America has sent out to these other trees. Okay? Again, the trees is the other nations, and the field is the world. All the nations in the world. Matter of fact, let me get a quick precept to support that. Matthew, the 13th chapter, and the 38th verse. It says, the field is the world. See? The good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. Yes, so it says, the field is the world. All right? And you got to understand certain buzzwords to actually break down these parables, man. All right? So that's why it says, and sent out her little rivers unto all the trees of the field, or all the trees of the world, or all the nations of the world. All right? Verse 5, therefore his height was exalted above all the trees of the field. Yeah. So America has been exalted above all the nations of the world. All right? And his boughs were multiplied, and his branches became long because of the multitude of waters when he shot forth. Yeah, and again, the analogy I made, if you got a tree in your yard, if the branches is long enough to extend to my yard, then that tree is going to affect me. I'm going to be able to pluck fruit from your tree. And that's what the other nations is doing. This tree, America, has extended out throughout the world. All right? Verse 6, all the fowls of heaven made their nest in his boughs, and under his branches did all the beasts of the field bring forth their young. Yeah, and that happened. Okay? You go to all these different nation of people, they pretty much migrated to America to have a better start, to create a soft landing for their kids. That's why you had all these immigrants. You go to New York, you got little Chinatown, little Italy, different places. You go out to L.A., you have these different communities where other nations come, okay, and set up their own little businesses. All right, well, that's this prophecy right here. It says, and under his branches did all the beasts of the field bring forth their young, and under his shadow dwelt all great nations. Yeah, and this shadow is that tree, which America is also known as the shadow of death. Verse 7, Thus was he fair in his greatness, in the length of his branches, for his root was by great waters. Okay? The cedars in the garden of the Most High could not hide him. The fir trees were not like his boughs, and the chestnut trees were not like his branches, nor any tree in the garden of the Most High was like unto him in his beauty. Yeah, the other nations is not like America, especially when America was in its heyday. All right, verse 9, I have made him fair by the multitude of his branches, see, so that all the trees of Eden that were in the garden of the Most High envied him. Yeah, and that's where we at in the prophecy. When you read Revelation, the 17th chapter, it tells you how the other nations is going to hate the whore. And these other nations envy America. And that's going to be one of the motivation factors that's going to lead to them destroying this place. All right. Verse 10, therefore, thus said the Lord power, because thou hast lifted up thyself in height, okay, in pride, and he have shot up his top among the thick boughs, and his heart is lifted up in his height. I have therefore delivered him into the hand of the mighty one of the heathen. Yeah, and this is dealing with mainly Russia, okay? Because Russia with Putin is going to spearhead this nuclear holocaust. It says, he shall surely deal with him. I have driven him out for his wickedness. And strangers, the terrible of the nations. See, so you notice we was just talking about the trees. So now why is the scripture talking about the terrible of the nations? Because this is associated with one another. The nations and the trees, all right, have cut him off and have left him upon the mountains and in all the valleys. His branches are fallen, and we're in that stage. Okay, the branches again is symbolic to the so-called white man and his extension, him extending out to these different nations, setting up military bases, setting up embassies. Well, those branches is falling because you got these different nations. They cutting those branches off. They're not doing business with America no more, man. All right? They're not dealing with the American dollar. They're using their own currency. See? And his bowls are broken by all the rivers of the land, and all the people of the earth are gone down from his shadow and have left him. Yeah, and that's what we at in the prophecy, man. See? All these different nations is not dealing with America. Why? Because America is being abandoned. Pretty much these nations smell blood, and they know that America is about to be destroyed. Verse 13, upon his ruin shall all the fowls of heaven remain, and all the beasts of the field shall be upon his branches, to the end that none of all the trees by the waters exalt themselves for their height, neither shoot up their top among the thick boughs, neither their trees stand up in their height, all that drink water, for they are all delivered unto death, to the nether parts of the earth, in the midst of the children of men, with them that go down to the pit. See? And that's going to be the fate of America. But the point is, you can see where the trees in the garden is symbolic to the other nations. All right? I want to give one more last example of that. Stand in the book of Ezekiel, the 17th chapter. Let's start at the top. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, put forth a riddle. See, and that's another thing. A lot of you guys think you know the scriptures, but you don't have the spirit on you. You got to have the spirit of Yahushua to break down the riddles. Okay? It says, and speak a parable unto the house of Israel, and say, thus saith the Lord power, a great eagle with great wings, long winged, full of feathers, which had diverse colors, came unto Lebanon, and took the highest branch of the cedar. Now, in this case, this branch of the cedar is dealing with Israel. Okay? And that eagle is dealing with the so-called white man. Okay? He cropped off the top of his young twigs and carried it into the land of traffic. He set it in a city of merchants. Yeah, and that's dealing with America. Okay? So this eagle came and plucked off the top of the branch of the highest cedar in Lebanon, and that was Israel. And they did indeed take us into the land of traffic, which we are to this very day. He took also the seed of the land and planted it in a fruitful field. He placed it by great waters and set it as a willow tree. See? And it grew and became a spreading vine of low stature. Yeah, and that's dealing with who? You Israelites. Yeah, we came to America and we grew, we populated, but we became a spreading vine of low stature. See? Meaning we are not very highly esteemed in this place, man. Okay? Whose branches, see, turned toward him, and the roots thereof were under him. So it became a vine and brought forth branches and shot forth sprigs. So yeah, that's the point. You know, that when you read here in Genesis, the 3rd chapter, in the 7th verse, or should I say the 8th verse, and they heard the voice of the Lord power walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and Adam and his wife hid themselves among the presence of the Lord power amongst the trees of the garden that's dealing with the other nations. And through the Spirit, we showed you examples where the trees is associated with the other nations, all right? So, yeah, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. Till the next time I say shalom.